Hello world, it's Calcutron here with a TI Basic programming tutorial. Today we are going to be writing a simple program to convert temperature measurements between Fahrenheit and Celsius. You can watch this video and merely transcribe the instructions we come up with here and end up with a working program, but if you want to really understand how this program works and write your own programs like this one, I suggest you watch my TI Basic tutorial series. This video will use concepts from episodes 1 through 3 of that series. Let's begin by looking at how we as humans would convert temperatures. First, we would check what unit our measurements in. This video assumes only Fahrenheit and Celsius. Then, we would choose the appropriate equation for our conversion, plug in our temperature reading, and calculate the answer. Our program is going to do something very similar. So as you can see, these are our two formulas for converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius and then from Celsius to Fahrenheit. You plug in your Fahrenheit value for F into this formula and it gives you your Celsius value in C, or you plug in your Celsius value for C and it gives you your Fahrenheit value in F. You should notice that these equations are the exact same, just solved for different variables, which should make sense. When you convert between two units, you should have the same conversion factor to get back. So let's take a look at the full program. Oops, let's not move the calculator around. Let's scroll downwards. So here is the program we're going to be writing today, and in this view we have two columns, a description of what our program is doing and then the actual code. So we'll start with asking for a starting unit. So we're going to get user input and ask them for what unit they want to start with. So let's call this program temp, or let's call it temperature, and create a new program just like that. And let's start with clear home. So if we hit program now and scroll over to the I/O menu, if we hit the number 8 on our keypad, or we scroll all the way down to 8, we'll get the clear home. And this just helps with making our program look nice. So when we launch it, it'll clear whatever was on the screen, and it will then show us all the prompts. So it just makes the program look a little nicer if before we start it, we clear the screen. Now we're going to hit enter to move to the next line, and we're going to ask what unit is the measurement starting in, and we're going to do that with the input command. And remember, we have to put this into quotation marks, otherwise it will try to evaluate it. So we put it in quotation marks by doing alpha and then plus, and that gives us a beginning quote, and then we say F, and then the equal sign. We're not actually using equals, we're just using it as a string, so it's not going to test for equality here. It's just going to print out the character equal sign. So we get to that by doing second and then math, and then it's number 1, the equal sign. So input F equals 1, and then space, that's alpha 0, space C equals 0. And then the question mark is alpha and then the minus key, and then we'll just put in a little bit of space and then an end quote, and we want to store their answer into the variable t. So let's just run this and see what happens. So we're going to run temperature, and if we run it, here we go. So it cleared the screen, it got rid of our call to the program, temperature convert, and now it's prompting us if F is equal for a value, and it tells us if we put in a 1, it's Fahrenheit. If we put in the 0, it's Celsius. So let's put in a 1. Let's say we want to start with Fahrenheit. And then the program just finishes because we haven't written any more, and it runs out of code to execute. But now if we look at our variable t, it now has a 1 stored in it. And that's what the input command does. It takes the input and it stores it into the second argument, so the thing after the comma. So let me just show you a neat trick real quick. If you hit second and then plus, you get to the memory management screen, and if you've taken a test, standardized test, or sometimes teachers if you do it on tests in their class, you might have done a reset before. But today we're just going to do memory management, because I already wrote a temperature conversion program and I called it temp convert, but I want to delete that. So I'm going to go, and once again it's second and then plus and then 2, and then programs is down here in 7. And I want to delete this temperature conversion program, so I just hit the delete key. It asks me if I'm sure, and I say yes, and now it is gone. So now if I hit second and then escape, I get back to the home screen, and if I look, all I have is my temperature program. I don't have temp convert anymore, which is good. So let's go in and edit this. And so now that we know whether or not they want Fahrenheit or Celsius, we need to check what the value of T is. So we say if T, so what this does is, if T is true, then it will run a block of code. If T is false, then it will either do nothing or run a different block of code, depending on whether we have an else. And remember, in TI Basic, 1 is true and 0 is false. So let's do if T, and then we need to put in a then, and then we need to also put in an end. So that's program 7 is then, program 2 is then, program 2 is then, program 7 is end. So if we want to add a line in between these, which we do, we hit second, delete, now we're in insert mode. We can hit enter a couple times and clear out a few more lines. So now what we want to do, if T is true, meaning Fahrenheit, so we say Fahrenheit is 1 and 1 is true. So if T is true, then they have a Fahrenheit value, and we want to get what is their Fahrenheit value. So let's do another input, and to do that we just hit program, go over to the I/O screen, and then find input, and then we're going to ask for Fahrenheit, just because Fahrenheit is, we want to give them enough space to enter their full number, and Fahrenheit's kind of a long word, so we shortened it a tiny bit there. So input Fahrenheit, and then store the value into F, and then now we're on this step over here. We want to calculate the Celsius value and display it, and we'll use this statement here to calculate the Celsius. So F minus 32 times, oops, small typo in my description over here, times 5 divided by 9. 5 divided by 9, and note here we're doing some implicit multiplication, so don't be tripped up by that. And then we want to store it into C. Perfect. And now we want to display the Celsius value. Oops, Celsius. And don't forget quotation marks you find by doing alpha plus. Very useful. And the colon, that's alpha, and then the decimal point, or alpha period, or alpha dot. You want to display Celsius, and then we want to output on the same line as our display Celsius. We want to output the Celsius value. So in order to know what position that is, you have to count. This will be in the first column, so column 1, column 2, column 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this string takes up 9 columns, and then we want to display our Celsius reading, or our converted temperature, in the 10th column. So the way we do that is we output, and we know this is going to be the 3rd row, so we output in the 3rd row, comma, the 10th column, comma, our Celsius value C. And then now we want to, oh, we already have it, we want to end our if statement. So this will only run if T is true. And true in this case is anything non-zero. So let's quit out of this using second mode, and then we'll run this program, temperature, and we get the same thing. It prompts us Fahrenheit or Celsius. So we'll do Fahrenheit. And now it asks us our Fahrenheit value. We'll say 68. And it tells us Celsius value of 20. So it looks like everything's working fine. Now let's try it again, and this time we'll say we have a Celsius temperature reading. So we put in a 0, and it does nothing, which should make sense because we haven't programmed the Celsius conversion yet. So that is right here. So we're going to, once again, we're going to get the user temperature value, calculate the Fahrenheit equivalent, and then display the result of that calculation. And we're going to do all of this in the else block. So we have our if t, then we want to do all of this. But if we want to do something if t is false, if not t, then we have to put in an else before the end. That's program 3. And then this code, everything in here, will be evaluated only if t is false. So let's delete these ellipses and then put in our input. So we're going to prompt for the Celsius value. And I did it again, Celsius. And then store that into C. And then let's clear a couple lines. And then we're going to display, we're going to convert our Celsius value into Fahrenheit. So C times 5/9 plus 32, stored in Fahrenheit. And then we're going to display Fahrenheit. And then we're going to output at column 312. So you could do the same thing and count how many characters is this string, and then go one more so that it comes out right after that space, 3, 12, F. So you'll notice you might have thought back on this line that I made a mistake and I forgot the end parenthesis, and you were part right. So the end parenthesis I can put in there and it won't break the code, but something you'll notice in TI Basic is that a lot of the time end parentheses are optional. So if they're at the end of a line, or in a few other special cases, you can actually omit the end parentheses. But it's good practice when you're first beginning not to confuse yourself and to just always put in your end parentheses. So I'll put mine in for this program. But in the future, you might see me leaving them off because it's a little bit of a nuisance. So now if we hit second mode, we quit out of this, and let's run it, temperature. Let's just make sure our Fahrenheit still works. So we'll put in a Fahrenheit 68, and we get Celsius 20, working fine. Now we select a Celsius value, and it prompts us for Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. So it's skipping all of this code in here, because if t turns out to be false. So it's skipping this code, and it's going straight to this code. So let's put in a Celsius value of 20, because we know what the Fahrenheit equivalent should be. And it gives us Fahrenheit of 43.1. That doesn't sound quite right to me. So let's check where we made our mistake. Celsius of 20, again, should be 68 degrees. So let's see what went wrong. Aha, so we made a little typo. We did Celsius times 5/9 plus 32 stored in F. It's actually Celsius times 9/5 stored in F. So let's make sure. Oh, so it's actually correct in our description of the code over here. So we just made a small transcription error. Now let's run this again. Celsius value of 20, and we get Fahrenheit 68. And let me show you that this works for any Celsius value. So let's say we have Celsius value of 30, then it gives us 86. And let's say, no, we want Celsius. Let's say it's something that doesn't come up to a round number in Fahrenheit. Everything I'm picking is coming up round. Let's say 24. That 24 Celsius, that's got to be, yeah, so it shows us this is actually 75.2. So it does have decimal point precision, and this can be sometimes a problem if we start in Fahrenheit and we want to convert to Celsius, and let's say it's 70 degrees in Fahrenheit. Well, this actually results in a recurring decimal, and it will wrap the screen. So that's one of the problems with this program that I'm going to leave as an exercise to the viewer. So if you can fix this so that it doesn't wrap to the next line, that would be an awesome improvement to this program. So I hope you learned something today, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.